Hey kids, Lisa here with another hashtag 78 days. It's that time. And I don't even, are we day 50? Is that possible? Anyway, today is the Queen of Wands, and I'm going to be talking about a deck that, as I said last year, a deck that bust me open. Eden Gallanter's Shamanette Tarot, and I have a bunch of videos featuring this deck and a bunch of videos that actually talk about the Queen of Staves, the Queen of Wands in this deck. This deck is its own thing. It's like no other tarot deck I've ever worked with. It's a little bit Crowley, it's a little bit Rider-Waite, it's 100% Eden Gallanter. And she really encourages us. I mean, she's clearly, yesterday I was talking about playing with symbols, and Monica Cleo Saki's Saki Tarot, and for Saki, playing with symbols is all about, or playing with tarot is all about like the way we make symbols ours, and we invest personal meaning into the images of a tarot deck and the images of the world, just the world. That really inspires Gallanter too. I mean, her imagery is her imagery. It's really like her voice is everywhere in this deck. It's really powerful. I mean, I think she's a beautiful artist. She's in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I don't know what other work that she's done besides this tarot deck, but and I believe these are watercolors. So let me just show you the staves. So she says, this is a suit that's about the creative imagination. And in fact, the whole deck is really about creativity. It's like Maggie Stiefvater's deck, or like Saki's deck. These are artists who are creating decks that are about the creative process. And I love that tarot sort of opens itself up so much to that. Look at this Five of Staves. This suit is really individualistic for her. Like the tensions that I've been talking about with the wands, about the relationship between my individual vigor and will and community, and how there's kind of that relationship, the sort of ego and the drive to create, to imprint our will on the world, how that then, in cards like the Five of Wands and the Six of Wands, how we see the need to play off against others. In this deck, there are no others. These figures are mostly solitary, with a few very notable exceptions, and that's part of what like this deck is all about. Like, how do I, with my creativity, how do I survive the creative process? I mean, this is an intense freaking deck. The Prince of Staves, she says, is a madman. The Princess of Staves is the creative artist. And then here's this lady, the Queen of Staves. Like, this particular card stalked me. Oh, and this guy, he's just ferocity, power, sheer power. When I was working with this deck last year a lot, this card stalked me. So let me read what she says about the staves, and then talk a little bit more about the Queen. Staves are the symbol of creative imagination, or spirituality, or energy, both of which really amount to the same thing. So spirituality, energy, creativity, these are all like cognate terms. They're all the same thing for Eden Gallanter. The sigil of the suit is the serpent. And I love that. I mean, the serpent is a sign of transformation, serpents shedding their skin, the serpent in relationship to the Ouroboros or the lemniscate, that sort of the serpent eating its tail, that kind of image for magic and infinity and ends wrapping into beginnings, and that kind of the cycle of life. And also the serpent and the story of the Garden of Eden. After all, the name of the artist who made this deck is Eden. So there's a kind of wickedness in the suit of wands that's really interesting. And I'm going to pause now. Sorry about that. My husband came home with groceries. Yay, food. Okay. But before we get to eat, we have to finish this film. All right. So, staves seek to change, to make, to grow, to do. Their role in human experience is to bring the self into the world and to transform both the self and the world in the process. This process is not a particularly safe or joyful one necessarily, but staves harbor a messy demise, she says. And in fact, that 10 of staves. Oh, do I even have it here? Mm-hmm. Okay. 5 of staves. No, I guess I don't. I have the 9, but I didn't get the 10. The 10 is a figure that's completely engulfed in flames and looks very much like the 10 of swords in the same kind of death of self. She says, staves harbor a messy demise, though less so than the swords, but it is an approach to living that has a powerful purpose. Its ambition towards change, after all, extends part the limits of human abilities because it flows into the lives of others and can move whole communities, whole systems, and thus the world. So, it's Eden Gallanter's vision is a very individualistic one. It's really about the soul of the artist, which she really elevates. I mean, if you look at this card, and this is such a romantic depiction of the artist, or when you look at the image of the prince, he's a madman, she says, and he's just filled with creative vigor. So, she's really seeing how the wands, the staves, are the suit of the individual will coming forward and transforming the world, and the world transforming the individual. And that kind of ends wrapping into beginnings of the serpent as Ouroboros, or the sort of emblems that she has here, of in the ace, where everything is intertwined. That is all about that dynamic dialectic energy where self is realized, transforms the world, world transforms the self transforms the world. But it's a messy process, she's saying. So where does the Queen fit in? I've been talking about the quartz in relationship to the elements. I've been talking about queens as relating to water. So the Queen of Wands would be water of fire, 2 elements that don't necessarily go that well together. But I think that in understanding the Queen, the energy of the Queen, what I've always found myself wanting to do is to talk about the way in which the Queen's energy encourages the attribute of her suit. Encourages, nurtures, nourishes, in this case, creative energy. But that's not what Eden Gallanter is showing. That's not what she's showing exactly. So let me just read her description of this powerful figure. And in a way, the description is helpful, but I also think there's something about this posture, this force of intellect and will of this figure and her ancient power. She says, the Queen is the oldest of the court cards. She is therefore the most experienced and the most far-reaching of the 16 court characters. Her greater age has not developed into warmth, empathy, or compassion, however. What she has learned is hardness, independence, and an indomitable faith in her own intuition. And she says more. She says she cares deeply about the world around her and its people, and therefore its future. But this investment has manifested in her abilities as an oracle, in her inspiring self-awareness and ambition as a catalyst for change. So here's the mix, the dialectic that Eden Gallanter brings to the Queen. She's incredibly powerful and has this strong will, that vigor, that creative spark, and brings with her this unshakable faith in her own abilities and her own knowledge. And that brings a hardness to her. That brings a ferocity to her that makes her not at all a nourishing kind of empathic, watery character. Her fire in that sense overwhelms the traditional associations we might have with the Queen as nurturer and empath. But on the other hand, Her ancientness for Galanter in this depiction is expressed as her being an oracle, as her being having this kind of prophetic voice and this inspirational voice. So she sees things and articulates them in this leaderly quality for the world, which then nourishes and nurtures and furthers and encourages the vigor and zeal and passion and creative spark of others. So she is a nurturer in Eden Galanter's depiction, but she's not warm and cuddly at all. She's fucking badass, not necessarily very nice, quite sharp, sharp-tongued, maybe not so patient, and really, really pig-headed. Okay, I don't have gray hair, I don't have oracular abilities, but I do or I don't have much gray hair, I have a little. I do identify with this figure. I identify with the ways in which she can be ferocious and hard-edged and pig-headed. I mean, I hate to say it. I identify with all those qualities. She can be impatient. She thinks she's the smartest person in the room, so she's a pain in the freaking ass. And at the same time, there's a sparkiness in her that I also want to identify with, a sparkiness that illumines and enlivens others. So there is something about this queen that makes her both a pain in the ass and then also someone who inspires the world around her. Can I be a softer, gentler, kinder Queen of Staves? Can I inspire others without being a pain in the ass? Yeah, that's the $64,000 question, ain't it? Okay, so, you know, it's funny. I identified a huge amount with this figure last year, and this year, maybe I'm feeling a little less hard on myself, because she's not very nice, and I don't identify with her quite as much. I'm not sure it's because I'm any nicer, but maybe I'm being a little nicer to myself. Anyway, it's interesting. It's interesting who we identify with. Yeah, she is freaking intense. All right, y'all. Yeah, on that note, thank you for being here. Thanks for watching. And thanks for everything you do and all the energy you bring into the world. And for your own badass self. May you be enlivened and full of joy. And may you go, you know, kick some booty. Get it done. Do what you need to do. That's the side of this lady that I think we can all aspire to embody. Okay, take care.